Alright, how's everybody doing? Today we got hopefully a pretty exciting video. I've been looking forward to doing this since I got this car, but we're going to be doing a comprehensive guide on how to do the B5 S4 brake swap on the B5 A4 here. So just really quickly to start, parts you're going to need, because this does get a little complicated. I have a 2001, so with that I do have bigger axles. If you do not have a 2001, you're going to need the 2001 or the S4 axles for the B5, as well as the S4 uprights. You can also get these ones, I believe, are from a B6 A4. They're the same thing as long as they're aluminum. They should be the right ones. And then you're going to want matching wheel bearings. Those will fit the larger axles. The next thing you're going to want is your B6 A4 or B5 S4 lower arms. The B6 A4 arms are a lot easier to find, and most things are just labeled as that. The only difference here, these outer ball joints are actually larger to fit in with the steel inserts on the bottom of the new upright here. So that's all well and good. And then the only other difference is this section here. This is where the bottom of the strut mounts. This is significantly narrower. You can keep your B5 suspension. You just have to put some washers on either side of this to space it out, but that's all fine. Other than that stuff, all you really need, your S4 calipers, pads, and rotors, obviously. I redid these in the last video that I made, but I lost all the footage. So these are all cleaned up and rebuilt, and obviously I painted them. I didn't do a great job, but it's there. I'll put a list on screen here as well, just so you have a list that you can screenshot for whatever you need. But everything here is all set for me, so let's go ahead and get started with the install. Alright, next up we can get the wheels off. Hopefully the last time for these wheels, because I got a new set. Old gross 15-inch wheels or whatever these are. Yeah, they're 15s. That's another thing I forgot to mention in the beginning of the video. You are also going to need a set of 17-inch wheels to clear the brakes. Get this out of the way and post it on Marketplace. Try to do as little work as possible here. Get some WD-40 on all these. I have soaked this stuff in penetrating oil already before, but I'm just going to do it again really fast because everything in here is really crusty and gross, as you can tell. Probably not going to bother taking the brakes off and stuff like that because it'll all come off at the hub. Probably the part that I'm most excited about for this whole swap, other than having more stopping power, is just not having to look at this gross suspension anymore. And then we can do coilovers and fun things and not have to worry about the car falling apart. no idea how they expect you to get a bolt this long. Can I touch this? Is this too hot? How? Here's an idea for somebody if you're going to end up leaving this brake line disconnected for a while, is to just take the bleeder screw cap from the old caliper and pop it on the end there so the brake fluid doesn't go absolutely everywhere, and it protects it from dust, because I'm going to go ahead and fix some of this stuff up here. Just a quick side note here, I just pulled this off on the passenger side. Whoever did this job before me used a combination of what looks like green chassis grease and copper anti-seize. Don't put anti-seize in CV axles. It doesn't lubricate like that. This is also, I know I tried to show this before, but the bolt was dirty. This is a 8mm triple square for these for some reason. So especially if you own one of these cars, I would recommend that you go and buy a triple square set. All right, little interjection here because I'm really smart. I put this axle in, went to put the bolt in, tightened it up, started pulling the axle out this way. Then I noticed it was kind of hard to turn. I took the bolt out, and now it's easier to turn. So I thought to myself, I wonder if these axles are two different lengths. It turns out they are. I measured from the boots here, from this boot to this inner boot here on this one, which was 12 inches. And this one here is 13 inches from here to here, or about 13 and an eighth actually. So this axle is actually longer, and that goes on the passenger side. So the longer one goes on the passenger side, the shorter one goes on the driver's side. So I have to pull this out now and bring it over there. I had to grab something that was a solution to a relatively interesting problem that I was having here. This bolt here that I ran through the lower rear control arm. On the other side here, there's a hole in the subframe for you to get a nut on there. And originally it had a normal nut on it. I put this back in there, but when I went to go tighten it, this nut sat about here on this. I don't know if you can see this, but it sat back here and I couldn't actually get a wrench on it. So what I ended up doing was I went back to the hardware store and I bought a coupler nut, put that on there, and now I think you can see up in there, I have the coupler nut in there so I can grab the end of that with a wrench. Makes everything a little bit easier. Here you can see what I was talking about earlier in this video with the B6 lower arms. The part where the strut mounts to it on the bottom is a considerable amount more narrow. So what I've seen people do, like I said, is just stick some washers on either side of this. So I didn't know how many I would need. These were about 20 cents a piece, so I just bought 14 of them. I figured we'll figure out how much we need for that. So it did turn out to be 3 on either side here. There was a little bit of extra space, but the bolt actually clamping it together took up the rest of the slack there, so that's all well and good. I did try to see if I could fit another washer in there, but these are too thick, so yep, 3 per side. So you need 12 for both sides of the car. So now that all the suspension stuff is done in here, we can go ahead and get the brakes on. You notice I didn't connect the sway bar and link yet, this here, because the other side of the car currently looks like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the sway bar end links when this side's all set up as well. But until then, I have used rotors that came with my calipers because I got those used as well. So we're gonna go ahead and get all that put together and it should be fun. Another thing I just remembered is that the uprights didn't come with bolts for the calipers and the calipers didn't come with bolts. So I'm gonna go and check if the bolts from the old calipers over here are actually gonna fit in there, and if they don't, then I'm just gonna have to run to the hardware store and grab some. Oh my God, that was excruciating. For anyone who's wondering, these are an M14 by 1.5, so you don't have to go to 6 hardware stores trying to figure that out. They seem to be a relatively uncommon size. Normally, or at least from what I just saw, hardware stores will have M14 by 2, which is the normal thread pitch, but you need an M14 by 1.5, which is considered a fine thread pitch. And you also want those in, I think the factory length is a 38 millimeter. All I could find were 45 millimeter length, so they might be a little too long. I'm gonna hope that they're not incredibly long and hit the rotors. If they are, I'll grind them down. But make sure they're grade 10.9 so they don't bend or break on you. And yeah, it's been 2.5 hours. All right, so what I just gleaned from that is that this is about full centimeter too long. This is a 45 length, so I do need to go ahead and cut that down on the grinding wheel. So a lot of stuff seems to be going not quite wrong, but just interestingly, as I'm finishing up this swap here. I guess to start, one thing I did do was I added washers and some blue Loctite to both this bolt here and this one, because I noticed when I tightened this up, it sort of obliterated the surface of the aluminum. So I added some, I had to get a longer bolt for this one to have enough length to add the washers, and then the Loctite on there will prevent that from vibrating loose and having this whole thing fall apart and kill me. The other thing is that I'm pretty sure these calipers used socket head cap screws, otherwise known as Allen bolts, John, when they put these together from the factory, because there is no feasible way to get a socket in here with this brake line here. The bolts I ended up getting, because they're such a big size, are a 22 mil. So the only way I can really get a wrench on here is like that. A socket won't fit unless I get a super short one. And I can kind of do this, but then I don't have any room to actually turn this. The one on the bottom, if you can see this down here, the one on the bottom is quite a bit easier to access, but the one on the top is just annoying. So if you're buying bolts for these calipers, I would suggest getting the ones with the inverse hex there, or for an Allen key, because you're gonna have a bit of trouble trying to get around this whole bracket nonsense. But yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll get this all hooked up, and I'll figure out a way to tighten these up. Then all we have to do is throw the pads in, bleed the brakes, and then we're good. So the last thing that I need to do here is just the brake pads. You'll notice that when you buy these, there's one that has 2 pegs in it and one that has 1 peg in it. Obviously these have a total of 4 pads per caliper, which weird design, but all right. So the ones that have the 2 pegs in the back, they face the actual caliper piston, and this notch down here in the bottom goes on a little channel right down there, so those just slide in nicely. And then the one with the single peg slides into a little slot on the caliper right here, and they just go down on an angle like that. And then what you do, if I didn't lose them, there they are, I waited to put these in because I wanted to make sure that I got them in the right spot. But these, you want to hook over this back edge first and then clip it down. There we go. So once those are on, bring that down. And then if you squeeze the side of this here, slot it into that. Squeeze this side here, slot it in there. And there's your brake pads. Now, if you noticed, I didn't actually put any grease on these pads or anything. I'm gonna see if these make noise. I would assume it would be a good idea to maybe put some grease down here, just on this edge where it actually contacts the caliper bracket where it slides, but I will figure that out later, because I'm probably not gonna be running these pads for very long. These were just like the cheapest pads I could find just so I could get this swap done. And then when I need better like track pads, I think I'm gonna get them from the same company, because they are the cheapest track pads that I can find. These are dynamic friction. These are their street pads. They also have, like I said, they have track pads that are about $150 for the front and rear if you get them from Rock Auto, I think it was, which sounds expensive, but if you've ever had to buy brake pads for these S4 brakes, they are incredibly expensive, like $300-400 for EBC yellows. So if the dynamic friction pads are any good at all, I'm gonna use those. So that pretty much concludes this. All I gotta do now is bleed the brakes, but I'm not gonna put that in the video. Alright guys, so that's going to conclude the video on the B5S4 brake swap for the B5A4. I'm excited to see how these feel. This should be much better. The other brakes were just old, gross, and small, and I'm trying to get as much braking power as I can for time attack purposes. I wanted to get the new wheels that I got with the new tires in this video, but they're still not done being mounted. They're across the street, so you will see those in probably the next video on this car. But for now, that'll do it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you are doing this yourself, let me know down in the comments. I hope I could help you out a little bit, maybe prepare you for some of the absolute BS that goes on with doing things like this. But I'd say overall for a brake swap, it wasn't too bad. Anyway, thank you for watching, especially if you made it this far in the video, and we will see you guys in the next one, hopefully with me and John.